Did you get 6:30? I got 6:30. Okay. Is there one on the, right there?
Here,
Yeah,
thanks.
there should be, okay? Could I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening, and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board meeting for Monday, April 1st, 2013. Tonight, we have a couple matters on the agenda. First one being a public hearing for a zoning amendment, and that'll be 12-14 West Street. In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, with respect to Chapter 290, therefore entitled zoning. The amendment would extend the existing traditional mixed-use zoning district to include the above address, which presently lies with the traditional single-family zoning district. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple handouts.
Thank you, Counselor.
For the record, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, Lowell, Mass., representing Weed Street LLC. It's the owner of the property at 12-14 Weed Street, and also representing Good Times LLC. It's the owner of 1278 Gorham Street, which is the abutting property. With me tonight is Jim Booton, who is the manager of both entities, along with his wife, Karen. We're before you tonight to ask for your recommendation regarding petition filed by Weed Street LLC to extend the existing TMU zone from 1278 Gorham Street to include the entire parcel at 12-14 Weed Street. It's approximately 6,500 square feet. A little bit of the history of the site. Jim has been operating Good Times Restaurant at 1278 Gorham Street for over 10 years. He originally occupied about 50% of the first floor of the building as a tenant, and in 2010, he purchased the entire building, and he had plans prepared to renovate and redo the whole restaurant on the first floor. We obtained all the required special permits and variances from the City of Lowell Board of Appeal to allow the renovation. Although he did restore the entire first floor of the building, previously he occupied about 50% of it, he only added 29 seats, and the total seating in the restaurant is 108 seats. In 2012, the property at 12-14 Weed Street became available, and on November 29, 2012, Jim purchased it in the name of Weed Street LLC. The issue at the restaurant has always been parking. And in accordance with the plan that was originally submitted to the Board of Appeals and its decision, which was allowed, there are 18 parking spaces on site. In addition, Jim presently has an agreement with the Valvoline station, which is located on the other side of Weed Street, for parking in their parking lot when there's a requirement. He's a good corporate citizen of the City of Lowell. He's made a major renovation, not only to the inside of the restaurant, but also to the outside. If you've driven by, you can see the work he's done on the front with the wall and the landscaping on the front portion of the building. And he runs a real first-class restaurant. If the zone change is approved by the City Council, additional land will be available for parking, which will reduce the congestion in the neighborhood. We anticipate that if this is allowed, we would have approximately 10 to 12 spaces that we would add to the back of that building. And I think if you drove through there, you'd see what that area is. He has no intention at the present time to demolishing the existing building. So the additional parking will not affect the next-door neighbor. They'll still have that buffer zone of the fence and the house regarding the new parking. The zone change will also straighten out the existing zone line between the TMU zone and the TSF zone. I showed you on that handout I gave you tonight how it would even out his zone line in the back. And the house won't be removed, so there'll be no change to the character of the neighborhood. It would also provide him some protection in the event that the Valvoline property is sold, because if that's sold, there goes that additional parking. So, and as this board realizes, in the event that he does decide to tear down the building and put a parking lot there, he'd have to come back in front of this board for site plan approval anyways, because it'd be more than 14 parking spaces. So, in conclusion, we feel that the zoning extension will be beneficial to the neighborhood, and that'll reduce some congestion, and we'd ask for a favorable recommendation from this board. We're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else want to speak in regards to this zoning amendment?
Hello. My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street. I'm the current president of the Lowell Citywide Neighborhood Council, and I am here in support of their neighborhood group. I've been contacted by Carol McCarthy, the president, and I believe she's delayed in traffic. Okay. And you know how we are in the neighborhood when it comes to business. But I think you need to look upon this application favorably. This applicant took an empty restaurant, cleaned it up, made it a successful restaurant that employs many people. So successful, he had to expand. He did that. He purchased the building. He improved the interior and the exterior. The landscaping was even improved. The property is immaculate, inside or outside. And on the inside, when he did his renovations, he cleared with the city all code. He bartered with the neighborhood businessman to share his parking lot so as not to inconvenience others. This property is a jewel in that neighborhood. More neighborhoods should have one. He sees a need for even more parking, so not to inconvenience his neighbors, he then purchases an abutting house at a good market price. Wasn't a gift. And it also is neat and clean. He tears down the fence that he owns. He pours some gravel to make it look neat and clean, and now he wants to share that area for more parking for his customers. He's an abutter. This way, he is not taking valuable parking places from the neighbors. So far, what has he done that either did not improve the neighborhood by cleaning up a piece of property that was getting to look abandoned and borderline shabby, or where did he take valuable, scarce parking spots away from the immediate neighbors? In closing, this man has increased tax income to the city, has employed many people, keeps his business so clean you could eat off the floor. I know, I've been there. If there is any business in this city we need to set up as an example, it is this man and the way he conducts his business. He needs to be encouraged and thanked by approving his application. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak in regards to the zoning change?
I think, as you said, Mr. Chairman, I think Carol McCarthy's on her way.
Okay. What I'll do is wait and see if anybody else wants to speak while we're waiting for her. But anybody else at this time?
I'm Tony Cruz. I live on Wood Street. The only problem I have is that I wish, and I speak for all our neighbors, is the pickup of the trash at 3 a.m. in the morning. I think it's quite disturbing. So who might be concerned, I'd like to bring this up. In the past years, I have brought it up to Jim, and nothing has been done.
So I didn't catch the first part. What happens at 3 o'clock in the morning?
They pick up the trash, the dumpster,
Oh,
quite noisy.
okay. Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to be heard?
My name is Norman Moran. I live at 20 Weed Street. And I just want to know what this is going to do to the value of my property. You know, when you change the zoning and everything, my tax is going to go up, the value of my property going to go down.
I have no idea. It's up to the assessor's office, I guess.
Right, and
I
that's,
mean, we have no clue. I mean,
that's just,
I'm probably surprised every time you are when you open up that assessment bill. I mean, I don't, will it go up, down, remain the same? I have no idea.
that's what I'm curious about,
Yeah.
what's going to happen. I wouldn't want the value of my property to go down.
Yeah, I don't, if they're putting just a parking lot in there, hopefully it shouldn't have a substantial change on you. I mean, it's, how far are you down Weed Street, sir?
I'm the next house.
Are you behind the parking lot or same spot on the street? What about?
Well, that's it. The house I just bought was at 12 and 14,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I live at 20, the next house.
Okay, I got you, okay. Yeah, I don't know how that would affect it. I honestly can't answer that.
I don't know
question,
either. That was my question.
so- Okay, well, good question, obviously.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak in regards to the zone change? What I'll do this time, I'll ask the board members, if they have any questions, council, and if anybody else shows up in the interim, I'll bring it back to the public, okay?
I mean, I can address those
Sure, if you would.
issues.
Yeah, why don't you
I
for the
mean,
neighbors?
I
if you
mean,
could.
we can address that trash pickup very easily by contacting the trash company and have them come at a different time.
Yeah.
You want, why don't you just identify yourself?
James Booton, I own Good Times Family Restaurant. The trash company is not ever supposed to be picking up trash at 3 o'clock in the morning to begin with. That's not on our contract. Most of the time that I see them, they're probably somewhere around 6 to 7 o'clock. But we could make arrangements on that. That was not brought to my attention prior, but that's it.
You'll make a call on that, make sure. And as to the value, I don't see how this would affect it at all, because we're not touching the house. The house is gonna remain where it is, and it should all stay the same.
If this gets approved, will it have to come back before us for site plan for the parking?
Not at this point, no,
No, okay,
no, because there's only like 9 spaces.
spaces.
If it's
But I
14,
mean-
if it's 14, we'd have to come back.
Okay, 14, that was the number, okay.
Yep,
So basically, then if it gets approved, it'd be paved, I imagine, hot topped, and then lined for parking?
yes.
I mean, you'd have to bring it up
You'd
the,
have to go through the city engineer.
correct, I mean, for pavement and line parking, and, you know,
Right.
strip it, whichever, okay, all right. I'll wait for that other neighborhood person to get here in the interim. Any of the board members have any questions at this time?
I have a couple, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Boyle.
Did you just say you're going to be leaving the house at 12 to 14 Weed Street, but adding parking spaces on that property to be used by the abutting property?
Yes,
That's the plan? Have you run that by the zoning officer or the?
we ran, the building commissioner is aware of it. He asked us to come and pursue this course of action.
Okay. And that won't put that won't in any way put will 12 to 14 Weed Street continue to be used as
Residence, yes.
as a residence? And that won't, and adding these spaces and the reduction in the setback between parking and the home, that won't kick 12 to 14 Weed Street into nonconformance?
No, the side yard on next to this gentleman's would stay the same. And the rest of it would all become commercial, so there'd be no setback on this section.
So there would be this residential use sitting in the commercial zone.
The two-family zone. It's a two-family house, yeah, right.
The two-family house, it'll continue to be used for two-family. Where is its parking?
They'll be able to use some of those 9 spaces.
They'll be using some of the 9 spaces.
If you can see, you look on that handout I gave you, look on the other side of Anderson Street. It's a very similar situation. See where that TMU zone goes in the back? That's behind the pizza place, and there's a house there. So it's a very similar situation. It's not new to the neighborhood.
Okay. Okay, this is actually, the owner might be better able to answer this than you. How many seats does the restaurant have now? How many parking spaces does the restaurant have?
108 seats in the restaurant for 18 parking spaces.
108 seats in the restaurant for 18 parking spaces,
Right.
and that will go up, and that will go from 18 to 27.
27 to 28, depending on when it's all scaled out, yeah.
All right, let's see. While we're waiting. Okay. All right, going from 18 parking spaces to 27 parking spaces will mean going from a parking space for every 6 seats to a parking space for every 4 seats. What is the standard in the zoning? Is it by seats or is it by square footage?
Square footage. We did receive a special permit from the Board of Appeals to reduce the parking requirement when we went through the renovations.
Okay,
There is a provision, I forget the number, that lets you reduce the parking requirement by 50% in the TMU zone.
right, okay.
And we did obtain that.
Okay, so this would bring you back closer to
Closer to what,
the zoning.
it would reduce the congestion on the street. I think that's what he's trying to accomplish.
There's currently extensive parking along the street on Weed Street?
Yeah. No, on Gorham Street
On Gorham
and
Street.
on Anderson, and also, not on Weed Street, because there's a parking lot across the street.
Oh, okay.
More on Anderson Street.
Uh-huh.
May I interrupt?
Yes.
Not yet. Just wait till Mr. Boyle's done.
And what is directly across the street from number 12 to 14?
There's a parking lot,
It's a parking lot.
goes
Okay.
with the Valvoline gas station.
Okay. All right, that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Mr. Gentleman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm curious, actually, I wondered if this gentleman had something to say. Would it be okay, Mr.
Sure,
Chairman, if we listen to
absolutely.
him?
Yeah.
But just one more thing that I'd like to add is that about the parking, I'm not the only one this happened to. It's just that the people comes out of there looking into Wood Street, that when I come in from Gorham, 3 times it almost hit me. I wish they would do something there at the end, a bump, a speed bump or anything.
You're talking about,
Coming out of the,
can you use the microphone, sir, because nobody can hear you.
coming out of the parking lot from the back of the building.
Yeah,
Into Wheat Street. If I come in, it had happened to me, it had happened to my wife and a few neighbors that I talked to. People, they just like to look down down Wheat Street, not to Gorham Street. If somebody comes, 2 days ago, I just stopped there and the lady came this close to hit me. I got nowhere to go.
yeah.
I don't know how can they solve the problem, but I wish they could do a speed bump or I don't know, something.
Okay, thanks. So do you have an idea what the configuration of the parking is going to look like on the,
It hasn't been drawn up yet, Steve, no.
okay. So will it be in this back section here? I see a couple of structures back there behind 12 to 14. will those come down and the parking go in there, or what are
It'll
what are your
be-
thoughts?
Were you in there? Did you go drive through there? Did you drive
Did
through that
drive
area?
by there, yeah.
You know where the new fence is? It'll be into that fence,
Okay. And,
where the gravel presently is.
okay. So, do you live in 12 to 14 Wheat Street now? No, so you rent it? Okay. It's your intention to continue renting it? Swathi, what's the, so the Valvoline place on the other side of Wheat Street has a parking lot in what is now a TFS zone. Is that true? Yeah. So
Prior
what's the,
non-conforming, Steve.
what is the, could this gentleman put parking in the, at 12 to 14 Weed Street without the zone change? Is that feasible?
No.
The Valvoline lot, Steve, was owned by, I think it was the oil company, Muldoon, I think. Muldoon, and that's a prior non-conforming use, the parking lot in the TSF zone.
I see,
So if that is sold, that's all gone.
yeah.
So that's why he's trying to come up with some protection in the future.
So here's my concern, and I completely appreciate the fact that the restaurant is well-run and that you're a good corporate citizen, but my concern is, I think these gentlemen here have a right to be concerned, while we say now that 12 to 14 Weed Street is going to remain a residential dwelling, it provides a buffer now to the TMU zone and to the busy Gorham Street, to the people that live on Weed Street. This gentleman who lives at 20 Weed Street, now that 12 to 14 Weed Street may stay as residential, but once the zone is changed, as you know, Attorney, that it's wide open, right? There's very little that can be done to stop development that fits in the TMU zone on that lot. So it's, and we can't condition anything, right? In fact, we don't even have any jurisdiction over zoning changes. The city council comes to us for a recommendation as the planning board. We can't say, all right, we'll grant the zone change, or we'll recommend the zone change, but we condition that has to remain residential use. Once the zone is changed, it opens it up to anything that's allowable under the TMU. So, a business could expand, more parking could go there, and, the people on the street kind of lose a buffer.
But
So that's my concern.
if he's going to do that, he still have to come back to this board for site plan approval.
Yeah, but for site plan approval, as you know, we can approve or approve with conditions.
If
There's
we provide for a buffer, that's,
okay. There's very little we can do to, stop further development on that lot once the zoning's changed. We could provide for a fence, maybe some bushes or something along there, but the lot could be used. So, I can understand the rationale. I think it's not unreasonable, especially where there's a parking lot across the street. But I do have this concern about the house now provides a buffer, and I think that house is at risk if we change the zone, because now it can be converted into, it could all be torn down and a business be put in there, and then these people lose their buffer. So that's my concern.
Thank you, Mr. Agenda. Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in looking at this, and I guess there's a couple concerns, but, and I think I'll go through the dimensional requirements, and I've got, I think, a sense of well-being from the dimensional requirements. But I do want to address a couple things, and it's outside of the purview of this board, but it's only because it's a little bit sensitive to, I'm very sensitive to the dumpster pickup. I have a local business not too far from where I live, and residents complained, and I'll be honest with you, and I can't speak for this gentleman here, but the business owner made it even more aggravating for the residents. So I would just ask, and I know Attorney Flood did ask that be addressed, so please address that if in fact that is an issue. And obviously, I believe Department of Inspectional Services, the Building Department, I would call them if in fact it does continue. Like I said, very renowned businessman in another section of the city, and not very accommodating to the abutters. So I just, and again, I'm not saying that's your case, sir, but I'm very sensitive to that because it does go on throughout the city. I have to say, in looking at the, and Mr. Gendron was correct, we can't condition it. However, when I took a look at the site, it really has taken on a commercial look about it as it is right now, that home in the back. And that really is on the property line. So when you look at the dimensional requirements for the TMU zone, the side yard setbacks are probably better than give more protection to the gentleman that lives at 20 Weed Street under the TMU zone than what's currently there right now as far as where that property sits. And if it's for all other uses than residential, then it's a 15 feet setback on side yard setback if it abuts residential use. So you're actually getting greater protection now from a physical structure being on the
Right on the line.
on the line, because this existing structure is right on
there.
the line. So from that perspective, I think truthfully, you'll get more if whoever owns the building. I mean, because we changed the zone that can be sold, and we understand that, regardless of what's being represented here this evening. If for some reason somebody wanted to sell after we approved it, then other things can happen. But you'll actually have more protection if somebody wants to change the residential use of that property. And then it would require either a variance, which would be a public hearing, or in fact would have to comply, obviously, to the setback requirement. So I feel comfortable with that. I think, obviously, I've been to that restaurant before. I mean, the parking is an issue. I remember when the proposal that went through the Zoning Board of Appeals was approved, and that was the main concern, was obviously the parking there. I think this, as Mr. Boyle noted, it certainly doesn't bring it into conformance. However,
It's better.
it makes the situation better. I think from that perspective, it squares off the rear portion of the zoning. It's very jagged back there. I thought it was odd when I looked at this and saw that the TMU zone wrapped around the back of this property. So from that perspective, I'm comfortable with it. I wish we could assure you what would happen to the value of your property, sir. The reality of it is you're within a lot of the commercial use along that Gorham Street. I think certainly this could bring the commercial use a little bit down, further down Weed Street at some point. However, if in fact that type of a change was going to happen, the zoning ordinance right now requires more of a setback from your property than what's currently here. So I think it could be position yourself to go before the boards and actually get a better situation for you right now. As far as the exiting of the property, I think the building department would be nice if they could look at that. Again, that's out of the purview of what we're looking at here, but certainly as far as the flow on that site, and I think that that's something that would be worthy to have them take a look at that.
I think Jim is willing to work with anybody if
Sure.
it's a problem. I think with the increased space, I think it'd be safer coming out of that driveway
Sure.
than it is right now.
Sure. Yeah, no, I understand, absolutely, yep. So from that perspective, I certainly, I would be in favor of recommending the zoning change, taking into account. I believe, again, from an abutting standpoint, that existing home is right on the lot right now. I think there'll be some, if in fact the intent is to change the use drastically, to have a business back there, I think that you can actually create a situation where you have a better, a much more attractive buffer between 20 Weed Street and what's there right now, and I think it would help to alleviate the parking situation, square off the zoning. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fischel. Mr. Lockhart?
Yes, just a couple of questions. On the sketch you gave us tonight, Council, there's, to the left of number 12 and 14, there's two little squares that are crosshatched. What are they?
To the left of,
Yeah,
those are just buildings out there. There's a I don't know, is there a garage? It's not a garage, it's a, what is it, these two little squares here.
Well, that was a shed, two sheds.
Right, so you
sheds.
just take
They're
those
gone.
out of the
They're
way.
gone, yeah.
Yeah, okay. You know, I look upon this as you got a successful business here, and by expanding the parking, you're just strengthening your business, and I'm all in favor of that, and all in favor of the zoning change. I would just add, you know, what my colleagues have already stated, for the trash pickup at 3 a.m., we gotta take care of that. And the gentleman that suggested the speed bump, whatever that traffic flow situation is within the area to work with DPD to solve
He can
that.
work with them, if this is approved and he does go in and pave it, then he could work with them at
Yeah,
that
and
point in
I
time.
think with
Something that could be brought to
the
the attention
additional space,
as the engineer.
you could improve the situation there. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Malovich, any questions, comments?
Not really, I think most of my questions have been answered already.
Thank you.
Chairman, could I? I'm
Sure,
sorry, could I have
Mr.
another
Chairman, go
comment?
ahead, please.
So I'm always sensitive to these issues where I feel like we're kind of nibbling away at the neighborhood. However, this is a tough one because, you know, we're looking at a traditional mixed use. So that means you couldn't put a drive-through restaurant on there or anything like that. Mr. Frechette raises some good points. You know, the fact that the current building is right on your line and the TMU zone actually requires greater buffer. So if that building ever did come down, which is not in the cards right now, you could create yourself a better buffer there. And he's right, you could come before the board, you could ask for, you know, something to be done to create a buffer. And some of the issues that you brought up, like the traffic and, you know, the parking on Weed Street, you have to admit, Attorney Flood's right. If there was a little more room there,
Yeah.
then maybe that situation could be alleviated. So I think that by granting the zoning change on this, I think we can accomplish two things. I think we can reward somebody who's running a successful and you know, well-minded business in the city, as well as keep an eye on, you know, what's happening on your street and your property. Sir, can I ask you, you know, we can't condition any of this, but would you be willing to sort of address these issues of, you know, the late morning, early morning trash pickup, and maybe take a look at doing something to slow down the traffic on Weed Street specifically? Okay. Yeah, or something, maybe, you know, maybe there's something you can do, just, you know, when people exiting or entering on Weed Street, you know, which is a neighborhood street, maybe there's something we can do to slow down things there. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did anybody else come in, Mr. Fludden?
I don't know where she is, she said she was coming, but,
Okay, I just have a couple of comments. The other thing is, you know, the entering and exit there, maybe even, once they put if they do get the zoning and put the parking, even some type of signage might be enough. You know, when they're pulling out, just even put a sign up.
into it.
When they're going into Weed Street to slow the traffic down, sometime working in planning and development, I might say just put a certain type of sign when they're coming off the lot, something of that nature, if they don't want to do the speed bump, something
Well,
like
I
that.
think he'll have to, he's gonna have to deal, if it's approved, he's gonna have to deal with the city engineer.
Right.
And at that point in time, these alternatives can be.
Yeah,
can be
so I'm just saying, you know, whether it's a speed
Sign.
bump, a signage, whatever they feel is appropriate, something of that nature, just to, because, I know, if people see the signage, they'll be more cautious.
But yeah, they're right, because the building does go
Right.
close to Weed Street,
Okay.
the existing building.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything else? If not, at this time, we'll entertain a motion from the board.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation to recommend approval to the Lowell City Council to adopt the proposed zoning change at
12 to 14.
12 to 14 Weed Street, noting the rezoning that parcel of land would square off the current zoning in the rear of the building, would provide additional parking for the use of the establishment on Gorham Street, and would provide some alternative buffers for the abutting property in the event of any future development under the TMU zone.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a
I'll second the motion.
motion second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion is in favor for the zone change, and I believe, council, you have a date, the city council, for next Tuesday night?
A week from tomorrow.
So
Thank you very
anybody who
much.
has any concern about this for the zone change, there will be a public hearing in this room next Tuesday night before the city council, and they have the ultimate say what should happen on the zone change. Thank you. Moving along on the agenda, the next matter is old business, 1557.1, excuse me, 1857.1, 1861-1867, 1909-1920, 1939-1949 Middlesex Street, known to all of us as the Charter School. The Lowell Planning Board will hear a request from the project proponent to present a revised building location site plan for the Lowell Collegiate Charter School. Following the assessment of construction limitations within portions of the existing building due to structural and Semitic specifications, the proponent is proposing to demolish the existing building in its entirety and then construct a new proposed building. The project previously received site plan approval to convert the existing manufacturer/warehouse facility into a K-5 charter school, including demolition of some of the existing buildings and reconstruction of the existing central building to house classrooms and related school facilities. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, George Cielides, Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. And I'm here this evening for the applicant. And I have Mr. Hammer with me. I think you're familiar with him. He's been on the project and been here for a few hours discussing the concept. Shall I give the board a little
Sure, absolutely.
outline of what we're here for tonight? Let me just give you some little bit of history post our last public hearing and your vote. As a result of the favorable action taken by this board at the meeting granting the special permit and the site plan approval, Mr. Hammer and the representatives of the construction people who are going to be building this property started to go into an up mode, a working mode, because as you recall, I think I said early on that timing was a very serious problem. Like every project and like everybody else has, timing is a serious problem because we need to open this school by September. And that was one of the reasons at that time that somebody made a decision that let's build off of the cement block center part of the building because it'll be easier and faster, probably. I'm not a construction man, but that's what I was told, that it would be easier and faster if they could do that. Well, it turns out that isn't quite the case. And as a matter of fact, as the people started doing their soil diggings and their structural checking and things like that, it apparently became quite apparent to them that there were better ways of doing this, taking into account things like earthquake and hurricane and those kinds of things that obviously by today's building standards become important. So I'm not going to give you much more of the engineering or building part of the thing because that isn't my bailiwick, as you well know. But the point is that we're here tonight because Mr. Hammer and these folks started meeting with representatives of not just the building department, planning department, I should say, but of the building department, the building commissioner, Mr. Slagle, who's now in charge of the whole department there, and other people. He'll tell you about that. and they started to look at the whole situation, and it became apparent to them that the better, more reasonable way to do this would be just to take the whole building down, get everything out of the way, and build a new building. Now, let me just say, before I ask Mr. Hammer to show you more of the details, if you stop and think about it, at least the way I look at the situation, and I'm saying this to you because obviously the question before you, the first question before you is this something that you can and will act upon tonight? And that is something that you have to decide, or whether or not this is as insignificant as a change as is necessary to go forward without having any future public hearings and whatever. It's our position that that's the case. I think Swati and the building department people will tell you the same thing. If you recall, when we had our hearings, no one asked very much about the building. I should start by saying the good news is we can actually take even a smaller footprint of the property to build the building on. We will not be interfering in any way, shape, or manner with any of the circulation, traffic, on-site things, and there are lots of additional benefits besides coming with a better building, and Mr. Hammer will again point them out, but we can get further away from the railroad tracks, we can stay away from the AUL, even though we know we can deal with that anyway and have to deal with it. So what really is, we're saying all we want to do is, instead of building the building on the cement block part of the building that we said before, we want to tear it down and build a brand-new building. So I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you want...
Sure, we can let Matt go forward and explain what the change will be in the building. We understand it's going to be smaller and a little more to the front, but if you give more detail on that, Matt, we appreciate it.
That's fine, Chairman. Does everyone have plans, or does anyone want
We all have
plans?
them.
We have
Okay, great. So Mr. Alides gave a great summary as to where we're at right now. And what's happened was that in order to meet the seismic requirements per the building code, which I think was overlooked when they first assessed the building, you have to do confirmatory soil borings in order to make sure that the soil bearing capacity to hold the foundation structures are such that it will be compliant with the building codes. They dug down, they have questionable soils there now. They can resolve that through the introduction of specialized techniques. But when it came up, they came to me, they said, well, what if we did a new building? I said, well, let's take a look at that. We put a layout here. We went and met with the building department. Everything started to fall into place. It actually would make sense to do that. And what I'm going to show you is this drawing here, and what's in blue or purple was going to be the footprint that was going to be renovated and turned into the new school, which is here. And what's shown in red would be the new school here. And what happens is, what we're able to do is, the rear of the building was always going to be 4 feet away from the right-of-way property, and there was going to have to be some egress points on the rear of the property. They could have been accommodated for, but it was going to be tight in that regard. But now with this new layout, we can pull the building away from the rear lot line by 18 feet and not affect anything from the sidewalk back out towards Middlesex Street. So when they came to me with this new concept, I said, yes, I believe that we could do a new building within what would be the total buildable area, which to me was everything from the sidewalk back to the lot line. We knew that we were going to alter in some fashion. So the new building does not affect anything from the sidewalk all the way out to Middlesex. We were also able to shift or place the corner of the building such that the AUL area, that I don't know if people recall that, now will not be within the school itself. It'll be located right here, which is where the dumpster area was going to be. And what we're also gaining from that is a much wider area to do the trash pickup and also to incorporate the recycling pickup in there as well. And we're able to fence that off and to put a gate structure there so there'll be no admittance into that dumpster area. And the egress points are here and here, so they'll be off the sides and the front. And these side egress areas are only for emergency use only when the fire drills are occurring and for the evacuation. So no evacuation will be done to the rear of the property. And the other thing that was new to me is schools are very sensitive about the light transmission into the classrooms. So with this new design, and this new building is obviously designed specifically for a school, they're able to incorporate interior bump outs to allow side transmission of light into the classrooms themselves. So what they gain from that is a better work environment, new school, more efficient, and brand new. The other component to this is, I know I've said this before, but none of this area will be affected at all. So the entire traffic layout will not change. Everything related to this will not change at all, so that we don't have to readdress those issues with the traffic engineers. And we did meet with Mr. Eric Eby last week and went over the entire design with him as well.
And you've already run this by the department heads like the
Yes.
city engineer and
Sure.
who else?
Yeah, so we've met with the DPD department on 2 occasions, and I've met with the city engineer on 2 occasions regarding this layout. And thus far, they have had no comments. It's all been positive towards this new layout. And we've more recently received an email from the fire chief as well, who is in agreement that this is a sufficient layout for him as well.
Anybody else here this, I'm sorry, Matt, are you done?
Yes, I am.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Anybody else here this evening want to speak in regards to this project? Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, at this point in time, I'll turn to any of the board members who have any questions.
I have,
Okay, Mr. Lockhart?
just, I'm curious about the back end, the back side of the building. Now, you've created an 18-foot span between the back of the building and the back lot line.
That's correct.
Are you proposing any changes to that area now? I mean, it's quite
We
a
are
lot.
not. It's just going to be left alone.
It's landscaped?
It's just going to be, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen there, but we believe it's going to be grassed right now.
Yeah.
And there'll be a fence gate here on either side to prohibit anyone from entering that area.
Oh, okay, so it'll be closed off, yeah. I'm just curious what this does to your timeline.
What this does, actually, is in renovation, things keep happening.
Yeah.
There's probably 30 different things that could happen, from the windows not being the right side that are supposed to fit into these
Predictable.
predetermined area, to soil conditions, to anything else that it could occur. This building will now be able to follow a straight timeline and able to get them constructed so they can build a lot of the components off-site, bring them in, panelize it, and meet the construction schedule to be open by September.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have,
Bob?
Mr. Chairman.
What's gonna happen with the additional land area that you are not gonna be using for the new school?
That'll be vegetated
Okay.
lawns.
No play fields or anything?
Yes, we have a fairly extensive play area here.
Okay, that's.
Not
cool.
used for that purpose, Mr. Mello. It's not, just more vegetation and
This area
landscape.
here will be grassed.
Okay.
And I should add, because I raised the question about a blank wall in the back and the field and the gate and the fence and the railroad and whatever. I've been assured that there'll be cameras up there to monitor that whole area in the back, 24 hours a day, basically.
Anything else, Bob? No? Mr. Shett, I'll start with you, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
No, I think obviously we're looking at 2 things here. First is whether or not this, the change is material, substantive to the original site plan, and I think, obviously, one of the biggest concerns was the flow of traffic through the site, and this doesn't disturb any of what we spent a total of 12 hours, I think, working on in public meetings. And I think actually the changes that are happening on the rear of the building and the overall construction of the building is a positive thing. So I certainly, I do not see what's being proposed here as material or substantive to the original site plan at this point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fischett? Mr. Genman, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we have a better plan now than you had before, because you're further away from the railroad, and you're going to have a brand-new building as opposed to, renovation of an older building. You're still going to be able to maintain all of the conditions that we put on the original. As Mr. Fischett said, it was largely a philosophical discussion and a discussion about traffic and so forth. So I feel like this really doesn't impact that very much. I just wanted, you were saying that the playing field is not going to change, correct?
That's correct.
Maintain that the way it was intended. Okay, yeah, no, I think it's, I don't see it being substantive to the discussion we had previously. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. Mr. Boyle?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree with the observation that this is a minor matter, matter of minor amendment to our existing approval. And I agree that this is a better plan. Do I understand that the original idea was that renovating the 100-year-old brick building was thought to be faster and less expensive?
Believe it or not.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think you've had more construction experience than I have, Mr. Boyle, but I've been around long enough to know, having been involved since the 70s with my cousin, Mr. Saras, who's redone many buildings, including the building I'm in, you never know what you're going to run into when you're doing a rehab of a building. This makes much more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are, I particularly like moving away from the railroad track. I particularly like moving off of the AUL area. Those are clear improvements to the plan. The issue that was raised in my mind, you said that the fire department saw this plan and was okay with it. Were they asked if they wanted an access lane going around the back of the building now? Did that discussion happen?
That discussion happened with the original plan, and in fact, they were not concerned with even having side access, honestly.
Okay.
They just wanted to be out front, and that's where the hydrants are staged here, and that they did not care to be in the rear of the building. In fact, it's problematic for them to be in the rear for a situation like this. And I was surprised. I thought that they would want fire lanes on both sides, and they did not even require that.
If I could further that answer, that was a subject for discussion with Mr. Hammer when we were looking at the overall plans. And there was some talk and question about, well, why don't we put a street around the back and get into moving cars around or whatever. And it was decided that that was just too much of a, we want to keep people away from that area. In fact, I'm not even sure that we might not at some point try to fence off so that there aren't a lot of kids there, but we'll have to look and see what goes on. So I understand I understand your concern in terms of getting to the back of the building. I think even if it were just vegetation and left that way, I mean, certainly when we say vegetation and landscape, it's going to look nice. We're not going to just let it turn wild. So I would assume that in a real emergency, you could get a fire truck in there. I don't know that, again, I'm not the contractor, but that's what I would think.
Well, unless, of course, it's the middle of winter and it snows, which is predicted
Occasionally.
on occasion.
Could I add one?
One more question for the attorney, just because it's what he just, question on what he just explained. You said that discussion had happened when you were originally looking at the plans. That was way back at the beginning of this whole thing?
No, when,
I was going to clarify this.
Okay.
So Our first rendition of this plan actually had an access drive around the entire building.
When you say this plan, you mean the new one with the new building?
New one with the new building. And I was
Okay.
advised to take that off the plan, actually. Not specifically by the fire chief, I just want to make that clear. It was specifically recommended that we take that off by the DPD department. So, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Mr. Lemire regarding whether he would want an access drive in the rear, but I would think that when he saw this plan, that he could have easily have recommended that we do that because we have the clear 18 feet in the rear. I can only say that my previous discussions with him regarding how they were approaching and looking at this building and from a fire department standpoint, that he had told me that their most important area is out front. And they come up with their plan as to how to address the building from that point. And that's why I was surprised even to not be required to have full lanes on the sides of our original proposal. So
Yeah.
that helps clarify.
I became privy to that plan for the first time a week or 10 days ago. That's why I said, when I was shown the plan, that was just my gut reaction, Mr. Boyle.
Now, when you have drive lanes going along the side of a building and then stopping, you put the fire department in a situation where they pull in and to get out, they have to back out. That is a little bit of a different question than if you have a loop that they can continue on going forward and go around. I do not feel that I do not feel 100% satisfied in that that this option has been taken into account by the fire department. I don't feel that my concerns are something sufficient to delay any action tonight, but if we were to grant a modification of our earlier site plan approval, I would like to do so conditionally upon the fire department getting one more bite at the apple, asked if they would like a fire lane to go behind. And like I said, that's a decision can be made at the staff level without requiring them to come back to us.
More than willing to do that.
Yeah, and again, and I could show the fire chief a plan that would show a rear access around the rear, because we've presented that before, and we most certainly can have that full discussion with them.
Somebody made a reference. Did I hear that that back wall is to be a blank brick wall without windows, without doors?
The rear will have a full line of windows.
It'll have a full line of
Yes,
windows?
absolutely.
Okay. Okay. That is all I had.
I just have a couple comments. I think it's a much better plan, you put a new building in there. I mean, even the first time I went up and looked at it, I mean, I said, they put a new building in, I think it'd be a lot easier construction-wise. Number two, it's a smaller, built-out plan than what you had before, and basically on the existing site as it sat before. And so now you're away from the railroad, which I'm happy about. I think that's going to be a safer issue for the people there. I'm glad to see that it's more energy efficient, because that helps us with our, green building code, that, they can address that. And anybody who works in construction knows it's a lot easier to tie up new goods instead of putting, new wiring, new plumbing into the old stuff. And I think, Matt, as you know, that's where you're going to run into your problems down the road. I think all the, all the new materials, the fact that it's smaller, I don't see a problem with the fire department. I know you've been up there with them several times. If they're satisfied to be able to get there in the first place with the bigger building, I don't see what being smaller is going to be a problem. If their main concern is how they're going to address the situation for their safety as well, and with it being smaller, I don't see it being a problem at all. So therefore, I think that it's a much better improved plan. I mean, putting a new building there, you want to stay to that new building up there. I mean, you got to go up there and look at the old one. I mean, when I first looked at it, I was in there one night and Rich pulled up next to me. I'm like, they're going to keep that? I'm like, okay. I said, hopefully it'll look nice when they're done, But, I mean, it's much easier to work with, like you say, going along your timetable. The fact that it's smaller to begin with, I think that takes some of my concerns away. And the fact that, as the other board member says, it's not affecting the traffic layout, which was definitely, what we spent a real lot of time on at the public hearings and also on our site visits. So, what I think we have to do tonight is we have to basically make two votes. The first vote is to decide whether this is a substantial material change. If we vote that it is a substantial material change, then we have to set it up for new public hearing. If we vote that it is not a substantial material change, then we can make the second vote, which would be to amend the site plan approval as indicated today. Before we do that, I'm just gonna check to see if, Swazi, does planning and development have anything to add on this? I know we received a letter from you, which was dated the 25th on this. I know we spoke with Aaron Clausen from planning staff today, and I know Aaron said that they liked the fact that it was a new building. They thought it made it a lot nicer than what was there before.
I don't have anything more to add, but I just wanted to support the fact that they did initially, when they approached with the revised plan, they had a strong recommendation for the fire lane accessing through the rear, and it was actually DPD's comment. Based on that, only they did not show that on the plan. And we did consult with the fire chief, and we didn't get any such concern from him. So
the fire
just
chief
want
was fine with it, yeah. I mean,
okay.
I would think, you know, if he had any issues, he would have brought them to you when you were on site with him before, you know? And with being small, I mean, if it was larger and you were changing somebody access to it, I think that would be a big concern.
Oh, yeah,
We
absolutely.
don't have that situation. So, if no one else has anything to say at this point in time, we, the first, we need a motion whether it's a substantial or material change.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we find this not to be of substantial and material change based on the prior discussion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion is allowed. And the next matter will be if we want to make a motion to amend the approved site plan to the conditions as suggested this evening for the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we amend the site plan as originally approved to what we've seen this evening.
We have a motion made. Do we have a second on that matter?
Mr. Chairman, based on the comments of staff, I feel that my concern about fire department access has been satisfied, and so I'd like to second the motion as made.
Okay. That motion was made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yeah. Any opposition? No. So, yeah, both motions have been approved. Good luck and wish you well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Will we see another rendition now?
No.
I hope not. I just wanted to note that we've actually submitted full construction drawings for this new layout as well. So those have been fully submitted to the city. So
I mean, in fact,
they're
you know,
committed to this layout right now.
You know, you say the new building with the lighting and all that in there, it's really gonna brighten it up.
It really is.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And I
Feel
mean,
I should-
the energy cost with the green building and all that, with the lighting in there. And I mean, that's important, like when we've done all the other schools in the city, that's one of the things that we really look for, that green building checklist, as the city's working on, for even their own improvements in the city. So, we wish you well. Good luck.
First of all, thank you very much, everybody. Secondly, I feel I should stay a little longer.
No, that's quite all right.
Mrs. Eliades won't believe that I'm coming home quite this early.
Sure you could come up with something to talk about, George.
I make a motion that George leave.
Okay. Moving along, I don't think we have any ZBA notices, right, Quasi? So, we have nothing from notice of board, nothing from abutting towns. Any of the board members have any, comments or,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask Swati if I had spoken with Aaron at the prior meeting about the Roger Street zoning issue that was referred back to the planning department, and wondering if that's something that we're going to see at the next meeting. He indicated that the 18th was the target date for that.
I can definitely check with him and send you an update email tomorrow. Is that okay?
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Fischett, do you have something?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to give a brief update, I think at the last meeting we had, I had announced there was going to be a public meeting of the Rourke Bridge, Wood Street Corridor proposal study, and that meeting did take place, and the firm conducting the study for NEMCOG presented alternative crossings for the Rourke Bridge. All of the recommended designs were all basically within the general area. One was to preserve the existing site, and the other one was to veer it off slightly, but actually have an overpass over the boulevard on the Pawtucketville side, coming out onto Old Ferry, and the other design was to line it up with Old Ferry. They, in all instances, it's a 4-lane bridge is what they're proposing. I think residents there brought up the same concerns, I think, expressed at the advisory committee level. Everybody welcomes putting a permanent 4-lane bridge on that site, but unfortunately, the challenge is still the infrastructure leading to the bridge, and the challenge is Wood Street brings, and obviously, whatever it comes up as the final design, that is still going to continue to be a challenge. But the firm conducting the study was really trying to get as much public input as possible. They weren't recommending any particular design at this point in time or any particular route. And in May, I believe, is when they will present a recommendation. And it'll be interesting to see what the final design ends up being. But I think the design with the ramp over the boulevard was very intriguing, coming out on the Old Ferry, and then actually having an on-ramp and off-ramp going off in either direction. It helped to create a little bit more of a release valve from the intersection on Wood Street, more capacity at this end, and created basically alleviated the situation of cut-through traffic where the Brunswick bowling alley is and some of the side streets, trying to get to that intersection because now it drops into Old Ferry. Obviously, it creates some challenges. Residents living on Varnum Ave felt it was more of a direct dump off to get cars directly into Varnum Ave and around that way. So, as Mr. Boyle knows, the more input you try to get, the more difficult it is to build consensus. But I think it was a good process, and hopefully in May we'll have something.
Did they address anything for foot traffic on the bridge? Because I know now it's,
There will
it's in
be,
either lane.
exactly, there'll be a walk, and it won't be a grid that's a cage that's there right now. If you're claustrophobic, that's an awful experience crossing that bridge on foot. So, hopefully they're coming up with something.
I think they're going to do a new bridge, hopefully they'll address that somehow.
Exactly, yeah. So, I think we're, looking for some positive feedback. They also had proposals for the cost, and obviously that will play a role in it. And the plan is once we've decided on the design, then we can go after the funding. But you have to have a design before you can go after the funding. And then obviously we'll see what the timeline will be on that, so.
So is it too premature to know what the cost would be? It all depends on what the design is?
It all depends on the design, and unfortunately, I had the material. I mean, it went anywhere from, I believe, $54 million to $86 million, depending upon what we were looking at.
Where would you be looking for that funding?
And that we'd have to identify it at that point. Sure, exactly. There was one wild card design of hooking up with Vinyl Square in Chelmsford and having a river crossing closer towards Tingsboro, but that was just, it was looked at by the firm studying the options, but that they were dismissing that as a potential option. So.
Thank you. Any other board members have any updates? No? Hearing none? So is there anything update for the board for us?
No, not at this point.
Okay. At this point in time, then, if we have no further things on the agenda, we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. We are adjourned. Good night, and thank you, everyone.
Okay, well,